What happens when Hollywood's most genuine star sits down for what should be a simple promotional interview, only to face a host determined to tear him down on live television? It only took 31 seconds for Stephen Colbert to push Mark Wahlberg past his breaking point, creating one of the most shocking moments in late-night television history. The Late Show studio was buzzing with its usual pre-show energy. Audience members filled the seats, cameras rolled into position, and backstage, Mark Wahlberg adjusted his tie one final time. He had done hundreds of these interviews before. Tonight was supposed to be easy. He was there to talk about his latest film, share some laughs, and connect with fans. What he didn't know was that Stephen Colbert had other plans entirely. The show's theme music faded as Colbert walked to his desk with that signature smirk plastered across his face. The audience applauded politely as he settled into his chair and shuffled his note cards with deliberate precision. "Ladies and gentlemen," Colbert announced to the crowd, his voice carrying that familiar mock authority, "our next guest is Mark Wahlberg, star of the new action thriller coming out this weekend." The applause grew louder as Mark walked out from behind the curtain, waving to the crowd with genuine warmth. He had always been good with audiences, his working-class Boston charm putting people at ease immediately. He shook Colbert's hand firmly and took his seat, settling in with the confidence of someone who had nothing to hide. "Mark, great to have you back on the show," Colbert began, but there was something different in his tone, something sharper than usual. "Thanks for having me, Stephen. Always a pleasure," Mark replied, his Boston accent adding authenticity to every word. "So, tell us about this new movie," Colbert continued, glancing down at his cards. "Another tough guy role for Boston's favorite son?" Mark laughed, missing the subtle dig entirely. "Well, I try to pick characters that challenge me. This one's got some real depth to it." "Depth," Colbert repeated slowly, as if tasting the word. "That's interesting coming from you. The first red flag." Mark's smile faltered just slightly, but he pressed on like the professional he was. "Yeah, people might be surprised by some of the emotional range in this one." "Emotional range," Colbert echoed again, this time with a barely concealed smirk. "Now, Mark, I have to ask, and forgive me if this seems blunt, but don't you think you're being just a little generous with that description?" The studio fell silent. Even the audience seemed to sense that something had shifted. Mark blinked, clearly caught off guard by the sudden change in tone. "I'm sorry, what do you mean by that?" Mark asked, his voice steady, but his eyes now focused intently on his host. Colbert leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, fingers steepled like he was delivering a lecture. "Well, let's be honest here. When people think of Mark Wahlberg movies, they think of explosions, one-liners, and you squinting at things. Emotional range isn't exactly the first thing that comes to mind." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Mark sat back in his chair, processing what he had just heard. This wasn't playful banter between host and guest. This was something else entirely. "Stephen," Mark began carefully, "I think if you actually watched the film, you might be surprised." "Oh, I did watch it," Colbert shot back immediately. "Saw it at a screening last week. And honestly, I kept waiting for this emotional depth you're talking about. Instead, I got the same Mark Wahlberg we've seen for the past 20 years. The audience was completely silent now. This had gone from interview to interrogation in a matter of seconds. Mark's jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his composure. "Look, I respect your opinion," Mark said, "but I put everything I had into this role. Maybe it just wasn't for you." "Maybe," Colbert agreed with mock thoughtfulness. "Or maybe, and hear me out here, maybe you've been coasting on the same tough guy persona for so long that you've forgotten how to actually act." The words hit like a slap across the face. Mark's eyes widened, and for a moment, the mask of professional courtesy slipped completely. He stared at Colbert in genuine disbelief. "Excuse me?" Mark said quietly, his voice dropping to a dangerous register that anyone from his old neighborhood would recognize immediately. Colbert, either oblivious to the warning signs or simply not caring, pressed forward. Think about it. How many movies have you made where your character's entire arc is just you being angry about something? How many times have we watched you squint your way through emotional scenes that require actual nuance?" "Stephen," Mark said, his voice now carrying a clear edge of warning, "I think you're way out of line here." But Colbert was on a roll now, feeding off the tension he had created. "Am I, though? When was the last time you took a real risk as an actor? When did you last do something that couldn't have been played by any other action star with a Boston accent?" The audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was a public humiliation, and everyone in the room could feel it. Mark leaned forward, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. "You know what, Stephen? I came here tonight to talk about my work, to connect with people who appreciate what I do. I didn't come here to be insulted by someone who's never stepped foot on a movie set. Never stepped foot on a movie set? Colbert laughed, but it was a cold sound. Mark, I've been interviewing actors for years. I know good acting when I see it. And what I saw in your latest movie wasn't it. The tension in the room was now thick enough to cut with a knife. Mark's famous temper, the one he had worked so hard to control over the years, was beginning to show through the cracks of his professional facade. You want to know what I think? Mark said, his voice rising slightly. I think you're trying to make yourself look smart by tearing down someone who's actually out there doing the work. Colbert's smirk widened. The work? Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks more like you're just cashing checks and hoping nobody notices that you stopped trying years ago. That was the breaking point. Mark stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward with the force of his movement. The sudden action sent a ripple of shock through the studio audience. Are you kidding me right now? Mark demanded, his Boston accent thickening with emotion. You think this is some kind of joke? You think my career is something you can just tear apart for your amusement? Colbert remained seated, still wearing that infuriating smirk. Mark, please sit down. This is just a conversation between professionals. Professionals? Mark repeated incredulously. A professional doesn't ambush his guest on live television. A professional doesn't use his platform to humiliate someone who came here in good faith. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every second of what was quickly becoming one of the most explosive moments in late-night television history. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether to applaud, boo, or simply watch in stunned silence. You know what your problem is, Stephen? Mark said, still standing, his voice carrying the weight of years of built-up frustration. You hide behind this desk, behind these cameras, and you think that gives you the right to judge people who are actually out there taking risks? Colbert's expression shifted slightly. For the first time since the interview began, his cocky demeanor wavered just a fraction, but he recovered quickly, leaning back in his chair with calculated casualness. Taking risks? Colbert scoffed. Mark, making the same movie 15 times isn't taking risks. It's playing it safe. It's giving the studio exactly what they expect from Mark Wahlberg. The same movie? Mark's voice rose another notch. Are you serious right now? Do you have any idea what goes into what I do? The preparation, the physical demands, the emotional investment? Oh, please. Colbert waved his hand dismissively. Physical demands? You mean working out and looking angry at the camera?